fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. I was 35,000 feet up in the air when it happened. Indigo flight 6E507. A typical aircraft with dark blue seats, cream colored walls and concealed lighting. The aroma of incredibly tiny quantities of preheated food wafted through the cabin. I was sitting in a seat 29C, the aisle seat, and there was this family sitting right in front of me. The father on the seat to the right, the mother on the window seat, and this child Anmol sitting in the center. Let me tell you one thing, I love kids. I'm not married yet, maybe I've changed my opinion later, but I adore kids, I love playing with them. So as usual, I started playing this game of hide and seek with Anmol. We got bored after some time, and I turned to my colleague Syed sitting next to me and started a very serious discussion about increasing inflation and decreasing hikes. And Anmol, sometime in the middle of the discussion, pinched me to grab my attention. Since he's a child, I didn't mind. I told him not to do so and tried to get back to the conversation with my colleague. But Anmol kept pinching, poking, prodding me continuously. Where I stared helplessly at his father and mother, hoping that they will reprimand him. I couldn't contain it after a point. I shouted at him, Anmol, enough is enough, stop it. And he giggled back at me, calling me Motu. He kept repeating that Motu, 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 and everybody there were looking at me saying, who is this new Motu? And he took it further and he spat on me. I raised my hand in defense, but I accidentally slapped him. There's a sudden hush in the aircraft, and Anmol started wailing at the top of his lungs. His mother grabbed him into her lap, trying to pacify him, and started shouting at me, how dare you slap my child when we ourselves have never hit him till date. The dad comes to me after a point and tells me, why did you hit my child intentionally? I was disgusted, distraught, and disgraced. I sat there thinking that I only raised my hand in defense, but it was more forceful than I intended. And I kept contemplating, why is disciplining important? What is the difference between punishment and discipline? Where does it toe the line to cross into child abuse? Because punishment is where we let the children suffer for their mistakes, whereas disciplining teaches the children to learn from their mistakes. The objective of disciplining is not to wound the child, but to help them learn. And I sat there thinking that if maybe the parents at some point would have intervened and disciplined Anmol, this incident wouldn't have happened. A University of Texas study shows that 79% of American parents approve of spanking, even though the child abuse laws are the strongest in the US. Anybody knows why the child abuse laws are the strongest in the US? During the 1950s, early 1950s, the divorce rates were very, very high in the US. So every spouse, when they went into marriage, they had one or two children from earlier marriages, and it was commonplace for the partners to abuse the children from the earlier marriages. But child abuse is the other extreme. And talking about child abuse, there's another story which I remember. During the late 1990s, the dot-com boom, this Indian couple, Ravi and his wife, migrated to the US. And eventually they had a child there, Aryan. So the first thing which Aryan learned when he went to school was not ABC. It was 911. So the first time, after multiple warnings when his mother reprimanded him for rampaging the house with lipstick. Aryan grabbed the phone and called 911. 5 minutes later, the cops are at the house, and right in front of the kids, told the parents in very clear words, this cannot happen. If it happens again, there will be serious repercussions. The child was delighted. He found a new toy, his own parents. And the torture redoubled. After a couple of months, the will broke, and the parents reprimanded him again. And this time, he went to his teacher and complained the next day, who called the cops, and they landed in the house again. And told Ravi, Ravi, this is the last and final warning. One more time this happens, you'll be put behind bars. Ravi was terrified, and the child was ecstatic. He even reached a stage where he made his parents do his homework. Ravi couldn't take it anymore. He sold his house, he resigned from his job where he was about to become the vice president, put them on board a flight to India, telling the kid that we're going to India to meet your grandparents. And the grandparents were eagerly waiting in the airport. But what they saw was Ravi kicking and thrashing at Aryan, bringing him out of the airport, and yelled at him, now you call 911. Now the question is, why did this happen? At the core primeval level, we are all animals. The baser instincts like being selfish, being cunning, are a necessary part of our survival. As Darwin says, struggle for existence and survival of the fittest are like algorithms which run us. And the baser instincts tend to be on the forefront during childhood. Ethics, morality, compassion are feelings which are learned. Civilization is something which is thrust upon us. Hence, how does a child know when to toe the line and when not to? A sense of right and wrong, and how to be civilized. That is the reason why, or the answer for that is fear. Because fear, or rather the lack of it, is something which makes the child do all of this. What is fear? When we touch a hot stove, for the first time we burn our hand and we jerk it away unknowingly. And next time when we are near the hot stove, our body tells us to be cautious, to fear the stove. Fear is what we are trying to instill when we are disciplining. Hence, hand-holding is a very essential part of learning. The first time when we buy a bicycle for the child, we run along holding the rod. After the initial few times, we leave it to see whether they can do it on their own. The same way, hand-holding till a certain point is very important, because if that doesn't happen, I've seen cases where the child becomes a drunkard, having thrown his job away, having had a tiff with his manager, whereas on the other side, the child is glad that his dad whipped him for stealing sugar from a neighborhood store. And he's glad that his dad whipped him, because he wouldn't be the person who he is today if not for that. So it ultimately boils down to that individual situation, circumstance, and perspective. Each of us is unique. Something which worked for me might not work for all of you. So the onus lies on the parent or the guardian to make the right choice, to beat or not to beat. That is the question. Over to you, Mr. Professor.